everyone! Last week we finished the expedition at Hubb's Research Institute in Carlsbad, where they study animal behavior, including the impact of sound on marine mammals. Sully, the pilot whale, did not want to go back into the open ocean because he couldn't hear. Hubb's also works towards a healthy ocean by studying sustainable aquafarming. Just across the bay from Hubb's is an aquaculture farm called Carlsbad Aquafarms. Aquaculture is the farming of oysters, mussels, scallops, fish, and kelp as a source of food for humans. With 7.8 billion people in the world now, and the number expected to continue climbing, more sources of protein other than cows, pigs, and chickens will be necessary to feed everyone on Earth. If aquafarming is done carefully and sustainably, then we will not run out of food in years to come. Carlsbad Aquaculture grows oysters, mussels, and scallops under the water in baskets hanging from ropes. Let's see how they do it.
While we don't know the first person who dared looked at an uncooked oyster and thought, lunch is served, we do know that coastal populations have subsisted on them for millennia. Just as importantly, oysters, mussels, clams, and other filter feeders were important cleansers for a healthy aquatic system. For much of human history, oysters provided lower classes a plentiful, inexpensive, and nutritious food source. But years of overharvesting and polluted water destroyed wild stocks. Oysters now are considered a delicacy, an indulgence for special occasions, or to be shared with people special to you. On this episode of The Green Scene, we are diving into the operations of the Carlsbad Aquafarm to see what they are doing to reduce the pressure on wild stocks of oysters and other shellfish, yet still bring fresh, local food to our stores, restaurants, and farmers markets in a sustainable way. Rebecca, thank you so much for having us to the Carlsbad Aquafarm. And so we wanted to go through some of the things that you guys are doing in your project here. Firstly, we can see some of the equipment out on the water here, and you're actually harvesting mussels at this time right now.
Well, the buoys are actually holding up rafts that are holding up vertical lines that have either mussels and trays of oyster in them. So there are a bunch of trays all stacked up with a rope running down the middle. And then the mussels and oysters are just down there eating right now as we speak and growing until we're ready to harvest them.
So oysters, mussels, and clams, shellfish in general, used to be more than plentiful in the oceans and along the coastlines. But this is a response to those depleting stocks that humans have had an impact on over the years.
A response to that, and also it's a response to less importing of shellfish or any kind of seafood and more growing it and eating what we grow here in the U.S. There was a time when the coastlines were just filled with shellfish, but there wasn't a good enough watch being kept in. Before we knew it, we didn't have our native oyster anymore in this area, the native green abalone. So aquaculture is a fantastic alternative to wild harvest or wild fishing. With shellfish, for example, you're not doing anything different than giving them a place to grow so you can harvest them in. But otherwise, the shellfish are doing exactly what they'd be doing in nature. We've just simply said, here, mussels, why don't you grow on this rope instead of out there on that piling? You know?
So here at the Carlsbad Aquafarm, we see that you're operating sustainably to take the pressure off the ocean. But you also go farther and you actually recycle the shells themselves.
Yes, we do. Whenever you're harvesting shellfish, you've certainly got plenty of them that don't make the grade. We decided to look into how we could recycle them and then sell them to different entities and use them to restore an ocean environmental area.
Because birds will use them for nesting.
Birds use them. There's actually a bird called the least tern, for example, that makes their nests out of oyster shells.
We also use them as building material.
Yes, we do too. We also have contractors, both landscape and building contractors, that will buy these oyster shells from us, grind them up and use them in the landscape or as plaster in walls and buildings. So there's a lot of purposes for them.
So Rebecca, are you telling me this is one of your silent partners over here?
Yeah, that's one of our silent partners, exactly.
The other thing that seems to be in a relatively embryonic state is the development of these standards and practices that commercial enterprises like yours would subscribe to in order to achieve a certification for sustainability.
We're regulated from the federal agencies, you know, the FDA and the USDA and everything, all the way down to your most local level, which is fantastic for us as a commercial farm, so that the consumer can look in a store, see that certification stamp, and feel like, okay, that's all I want to get are sustainable seafoods. And it's wonderful because as an aqua farmer, we are also part of that voice. We're part of those decisions. They're asking our opinions and using those opinions along with all these other entities in order to set those standards.
So on top of being sustainable, or at least as part of it, it seems that even the center itself was recycled.
Yes, it was recycled. We started off as a research institute for San Diego State, and then from there this farm grew.
This is Dennis from the Carlsbad Aqua Farm. He is the marine biologist in residence. And what are we going to do right now?
We're just going to take a little spin around the lagoon in the green boat, and we'll take a look closely at some of the oyster and mussel that are suspended beneath there and talk a little bit about what we do.
Great.
So this first one here with the balls is I've got clams in trays. Same with the oysters. And under these barrel floats are mussels. So everything's suspended off the bottom. When we take it off of here, we're going to get somewhere between 25 and 50 pounds of mussel on each tube. There goes the boat full of mussel. I guess they got all they need. With that line, they can, that on the boom, it's got that catch on there so they can lift the whole line right over the deck and harvest it from there.
Oh.
The oyster are a little different in that, of course, they're being grown in trays, but these also have to be pulled out of the water every 3 weeks. Hosed off, run through the tumbler, that breaks off the leading edge where all the shell growth is happening.
Oh, right.
And then we'll put back in the water and they repair and grow out that shell.
Okay.
That makes it grow a deeper cupped shape. But in the wild, these would grow in big clumps.
So you're not fertilizing anything? You're not...
No fertilizers, no antibiotics, no chemicals that we're adding in any way to the water out here. It's just a natural phytoplankton that exists here without any influence on our part. I'm going to point out the drift kelp that's coming in. I got a lot of, that's the macroalgae. I collect those, and those we'll use for the abalone that are also, that we grow on land. And you'll probably see those in the tanks. I was going to say, while we're here, I'm just going to open one of these lids.
So
there's an in-between stage between the hatchery and when they're ready to go out in the lagoon.
Right. Oh.
Now what's in there are juvenile oyster, and there's probably about 300,000 inside this one flepsy.
Jeez.
As they get bigger and they get about ½ inch to 3/4 inch, we'll put them in the trays and put them out in the lagoon. In 9 months to a year, they're going to be big enough to eat.
Wow. We're here now with Patrick, who is going to take us through some of the operations for the Carlsbad Aqua Farm. And we're in one of the preliminary units that they use, which is...
This is our algae room here.
Okay.
Yep.
So these bags are baby food.
Exactly.
All right.
Baby food for oysters and mussels. What we're growing in here are a couple different varieties of microalgae. These are the primary food source for the mussel and oyster that we're going to be growing while they're still in the larval stage. We're basically replicating what they would naturally be feeding on in the ocean, but we're growing it in a little bit more controlled, cleaner, purified setting. Okay. And it's, it's a good mix of high-tech, low-tech. You've got our parent cultures here. This is basically what it's all started from. You're going to use, you add a little tiny bit of algae, you add the sunlight, which we were using these bulbs in here to, to achieve, and then some oxygen, and boom, it goes up, probably from crystal clear water to, this is a nice dark bag right here.
Yeah.
And really the darker the color, the better. These bags and all of our ISO in the corner, it all is all ready basically to be fed out. So we're pretty much flush right now with microalgae. The quality control is essentially maintained within this unit. The pure water straight from the lagoon is going to be pumped on shore and then fed into this room. And the way the plumbing is set up in here, it's going to be sent through 3 different types of filtration systems, each of which is going to achieve a different goal and polish the water in a different way.
That seems to replicate the natural process that water will go through sediments, layer after layer.
And this is pressurized, essentially achieving the same goal.
Got it. Okay, so we just saw how the water's filtered from the lagoon to the pipes, and now you send that over here so that you can have the mussels, oysters, and clams settle into really pure water.
That ultra-filtered, pure, clean water from that filtration room you just saw, it's pumped across the ceiling through the pipes here, and then down and into each and every one of these tanks to this room. These spreader bars are going to spread this purified, clean, filtered water out and fill this tank until it's about full to here. Once those drains are put back in at the end, it'll flow right back out into a drain back out to the ocean.
Cleaner than
Cleaner than it was when we pumped it in. And this is one of the things that sets us apart. Doing this and maintaining this equipment takes a lot of time and effort, but it guarantees that when stuff leaves our farm, it's the freshest it can possibly be because they can stay in these tanks until the very moment they're packed and end up on a truck heading to their destination. We do tests from each individual tank, tissue, and water samples to an independent lab who will then look at it and guarantee and say, yes, what you guys are doing is working, this stuff is perfectly clean and guaranteed safe for sale.
And you can stamp it.
And we stamp it, exactly.
All right. Well, Patrick, this is something else that you guys are harvesting here that goes along with the mussels, oysters, and clams, but still a little unique on its own.
Yeah, this is our Redogo, or Gracilaria pacifica. It's a local seaweed that grows naturally. It's very popular in both the culinary trade and in the marine wholesale aquarium trade as well. It's popular for some of your more popular aquarium fish as it is for sushi chefs and people who enjoy eating raw foods and seaweeds and that sort of thing. It's a very healthy item as well. It's very high in iodine, and it's found quite often in health food stores dehydrated. This stuff grows like weeds. Once the sun hits it right and the water temperature's right, you can go from literally a couple handfuls to hundreds of pounds in a matter of months.
And you can eat these?
Absolutely. If you'd like to try a chunk, I'll try a chunk with you.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Breakfast of champions.
Just salty, crunchy, tastes like the beach. Imagine on top of a Caesar salad with some creamy dressing or something. Mix it up with some vinegar and shrimp as a garnish for grilled fish.
That's actually really good. And so we're gonna try.
Yeah, I've got a couple of oysters if you'd like to try one on the half shell here. I'll pop one for you. All right, well, we just pulled these this morning. One of the nice things about our oyster, too, that I love to point out to people is they grow so quickly here in the lagoon, only about a year. So they put most of their effort into producing the meat.
The Irish writer Jonathan Swift said that he was the bold man who first ate an oyster, but it's a good thing that he did because these things are packed with nutrients, pretty low carb, high omegas. It's actually a very nutritious food. Well, Patrick, thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
We really appreciated it.
Good deal.
And we definitely appreciate everything that you guys are doing at the Carlsbad Aqua Farm to take the pressure off the ocean and feed people like us as much as we can.
Yeah, well, that's what we do.
And thank you for joining this episode of The Green Scene. We hope you continue to watch programs like ours and also support the Carlsbad Aqua Farm. And just remember, if you want to be seen,
be green.
Before we move on to our next stop, let's learn a few things about marine invertebrae. This will give us an introduction to what we'll see next.
Hi, my name is Johanna. I'm a LA high school student.
Hi, I'm Chelsea. I'm the mate on Exie Johnson. Today we're going to be talking about marine biology.
And these are two of the tools that we'll be using. The first one would be a compound scope, generally used for smaller organisms. And this is a dissection scope used for bigger organisms, like the ones we have here.
We're also going to be using our plankton net because within every teaspoon of seawater, there are millions and millions of plankton floating inside. So plankton, it comes from the Greek word meaning wanderer. They are drifters that float freely in the water. They are defined because they actually cannot swim against a current, they are alive, and they live in the water. So some common examples of plankton are the little copepods, which the plankton in SpongeBob is based off of. Jellyfish are technically plankton. My personal favorite, seahorses, are technically plankton as well because there's no way that tiny little back fin is going to help them swim against a current. Let's break it down into two major categories. We've got our phytoplankton, which are more plant-like in that they photosynthesize, and our zooplankton, which are more animal-like. They are eating the phytoplankton. They cannot make any food for themselves. Now, phytoplankton are responsible for the majority of the water food chain. They're also responsible for the majority of the oxygen produced on this planet. Everyone take a deep breath. Take another breath. One more for good measure. 2 out of 3 of those breaths are actually thanks to phytoplankton in the water. Not trees on the land, phytoplankton in the water.
So marine worms are generally called polychaetes, and they're actually very unique because they're the first organisms that actually develop nerve bundles, meaning they're the first animals to actually have brains, as well as develop a digestive tract, meaning they're the first animal to have a mouth and an anus. So they're also the first animal to have hearts and kidneys, which will allow them to not only collect the food that they eat, but also spread the nutrients throughout their entire body.
Let's talk about echinoderms. They get that fancy name. It means spiny skin, and you've probably seen a lot of echinoderms. They are represented by sea stars, like these little brittle stars we have here, sea urchins. Fun fact, urchin is Old English for hedgehog, so they're sea hedgehogs. It's the cutest thing ever. There also includes sea cucumbers. All of them fall under echinoderms. Now, what makes an echinoderm is they have pentaradial symmetry. That means that they have 5 planes. You could cut them in 5 different directions and they would still be symmetrical. You fold them in half, one side looks like the other. They have a water vascular system, which means that they don't actually have any blood inside of them. All they have is the water that they are pumping through their body and giving them rigidity. They also have these great little adaptations called tube feet. They look like tiny little suction cups sticking out of their body. So another really big group you'll see in the water is arthropods. That includes things like crabs, lobsters, shrimps, copepods, amphipods, horseshoe crabs, all of that kind of stuff. And they are characterized by their jointed, segmented limbs. They all have the very bendy, hard shells, and a variety of a diet. They range in size from like the big lobsters to even the tiniest little shrimp. Moving on, we've got our mollusk examples here. Common ones you'll see are mussels. You probably like to eat a lot of them, like clams or like scallops or oysters. Some oddballs in the mollusk family. Well, usually we think about them having that nice hard shell, but there are some oddballs out there like squids and octopus are actually mollusks as well. Yes, they no longer have a shell, but they do have a mantle, which comes out, if you've ever seen the squishy inside of a clam or a mussel, it's the foot that is also part of the mantle, which is the squishy part of the octopus, and they have that the same.
Tunicates are usually called sea squirts, but they're tunicates. They're actually filter feeders. They take in water from one end, which they filter out for food and oxygen, and through the other end they expel the wastewater, which is just CO2 and, well, waste, like us. So they're actually the first animal to develop nerve cords, which eventually in other animals developed into spinal cords and ultimately into backbones. So in a sense, they're not our relative, but a common ancestor.
Thank you for joining us today while we talked about marine invertebrates.
And now for your assignment, pick one of these organisms, describe them, and define why they belong to their phylum.
My name is Mark Friedman, and I am an educator with the Los Angeles Maritime Institute. I spent 13 years teaching marine biology in inner city Los Angeles, and we have now developed for LAMI a curriculum that correlates to NGSS and Common Core. We are more than happy to share these videos with you and to produce new ones. Our website, www.lamitopsail.org, is filled with activities that you can use in the classroom or online for your students. This includes 2 complete marine biology courses, one for students taking biology in 9th and 10th grade, and another for juniors and seniors in an honors marine biology course. Both courses have extensive materials, lesson plans, reading assignments, homework, games, whatever you may need, labs, in order to fulfill the requirements for teaching biology, AP biology, environmental science, and marine biology. Please visit our website and contact us if you would like further assistance in developing your course and program.
Now that we understand marine invertebrae, let's move on. Our next stop is pretty special. We have traveled as far south as La Jolla near San Diego. There are several universities in San Diego that some of you may even end up attending when you go to college in a few years. One of those universities is the University of California at San Diego and home to the famous Scripps Institute of Oceanography. Birch Aquarium is a public outreach site of Scripps Oceanography where people learn about what the university students are researching. Let's see what Scripps students are working on today.
Hi Birch Aquarium fans, it's Eric once again, the Birch Aquarium Live Food Aquarist. I read one of your questions the other day about our sea dragon babies, and you're wondering, what do sea dragons actually eat? So my job here is we actually raise the sea dragon food, and that would be the mysid shrimp. So here's a quick little look at the live shrimp. So we get thousands of these shrimp every week, and we feed these out to the adults. However, part of my other job is to transition a lot of our baby animals, particularly our seahorses here in the Dorothy Monroe Seahorse Room, as well as our baby sea dragons. And part of that transition food actually happens to be the babies of the mysid shrimp that you just saw. And so what I'll be doing is actually taking you over to our lab where I've actually collected a bunch of these babies to actually separate them out from the debris and give you a better shot at what these babies, all these seahorse babies and the sea dragon babies are eating. All right, so now we're in the lab, and I've just actually collected a bunch of the babies, and I'm giving them a cleanup. So using this pipette, I actually painstakingly siphon out a lot of the debris that ends up in this awesome little cup. And to give you a shot of what these baby mysids look like, I'm going to place them under our scope here so you can see just how tiny they are. So these baby mysids are about 1 millimeter in length, very different from their actual adults that are about 1 centimeter in length. And so over time, we'll actually transition and grow these baby mysids up. That way they can serve as a nice food for our younger animals as they grow older too. Well, I hope to see you again. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Bye.
Hi everybody, my name is Mike and I'm one of the aquarists here at Birch, and you guys are here for another exciting episode of Behind the Scenes at Birch. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about our Kelp Forest exhibit. So if you guys have been here before, it's our largest display. People always ask, why do we have the motion in the tank? And you're going to notice it a lot up at this top right hand side, and those are some of our sea palms, and you can really see them moving back and forth. So we do this for a couple of reasons. One, it's really great for the health of our fish. Two, with all of our algae in here, they don't have roots like terrestrial plants, so they actually take their nutrients in through their blades, or what you might think of as leaves. And so by having that constant movement, it allows our algae, like our sea palms, our kelp, as well as our other algae, to bring in that nutrients. Another really fun thing before we jump behind the scenes and I show you how we make this wave is if you look down here at this rock, you can see some nice red algae. And so that right there is a little farm from our California State marine fish. That's going to be our Garibaldi, Tipsipops rubicundus. And if you look, they're actually our bright orange goldfish, but they're actually a damsel. And so our male every spring will come and he'll make that nest. And so basically he'll cultivate that red algae. the bigger his nest is and the cleaner it is, the more likely a female is going to lay her eggs there. And so this male, for the past 5 to 10 years, is getting a female to lay eggs every season and multiple times throughout that season. So hopefully in the next coming weeks, we'll see some eggs on there. So give me a couple seconds and we're going to jump up top. Oh gosh, that was my radio. Don't mind that. So this is our wave machine. So it's a giant plunger. So basically we're moving all of this water in order to get that motion in our kelp tank. If we look to the two sides, you're gonna see we have this awesome green layer up at the surface. That's gonna be our ova, and those are gonna be the highest algae that we get. That's gonna be that upper tidal zone. And if you look around the edge over there on that far side, you're gonna see that same thing. You're gonna see we get a really great movement of water. This is incredibly important, and we're one of the few aquariums in the world that can do it. And so by having this, it gives us the opportunity to have live algae. And what's really amazing is we actually use raw seawater. So our seawater gets pumped up from the Scripps Pier, and part of the amazing thing with that is all of these algae, like our sea palms, naturally accrue in here. And then also with all of that, we get all that really amazing nutrients coming in, which allows us to grow them. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me on Behind the Scenes at Birch. Hope you have a wonderful day.
Hey guys, my name's Sean and I work at Birch Aquarium. Today I'm going to be giving you guys a little behind the scenes peek at how we, kind of the life cycle of a coral colony at Birch. So right here we have a cropper, a young guy. It's one of our oldest captive bred corals in the building, and it needs a little thinning or pruning. As these coral colonies grow, they begin to shade themselves. So at the base you'll notice a lot of the tissue has recessed, and in order to get light back into that colony, we're going to need to thin some of this out. So what you're going to see today is how we fragment coral colonies in captivity.
Hey guys, so here we are in the back. This is the top of the tank that we just saw from the front, and as you can see, this colony is growing very tightly together. The branches aren't allowing a lot of light to get into the center of the colony, which causes, like I said earlier, some recession from the bottom. So in order to fix that, we're going to have to prune or thin out this colony. So right here I'm going to reach in. This looks like a good spot to start. We're going to work from the outside in, and I'm going to snap off this small piece right here, then hand it to Mike down here where you can put it on reserve. What we're going to do then is we're going to take fragments of corals that we've already propagated of the same species, and we're going to actually plant them back in here kind of like a garden, and we're going to regrow this colony over the next 2 to 3 years. But we are going to fragment this colony and send it out to other aquariums around the United States. We're going to just give a little snap like that. Try to gently feed it out. And then here's as you guys can see, a large a cropper, a young guy, or a staghorn coral. You can see where it gets the name staghorn coral from the shape of this colony. So it kind of looks like a deer antler. Pretty beautiful, pretty amazing piece. I'm going to hand this over to Mike. So now we are complete with removing all of the old colony, and as you guys can see, the tank on the top is empty and we have a new clean slate to plant some younger corals that we've propagated. So let's go over here and I'll show you guys some small corals that we've been growing for about six to 8 months. So these are small colonies. As you can see, they actually are glued onto a little concrete base, and this is what we're going to plant into the tank, kind of like transplanting vegetables into the garden. So we're going to get those in there, and then they'll grow into a new, what we call mother colony. So thanks guys so much for following along and being here with me to learn about some coral propagation and a little bit of exhibit maintenance, and hopefully we'll see you guys soon when we reopen. So thanks for stopping by.
Hey guys, so we thought we'd show you a little bit more behind the scenes of our turtle feeding and training sessions because you seem to enjoy our ray one so much. So Amy here is in the water. Amy and I both work with the loggerhead sea turtle, and so Amy will be target training our turtle today with some nice clam tongue. So what's going to happen first is Amy's going to hop in the water, and that means I'm going to put together 3 clam tongue for her. And one of these clam tongue halves have a vitamin sandwiched right in there as well. So the target is the first thing I'm handing Amy, and then the tongs, which have all of those clam tongues sandwiched in there.
You'll notice as Amy jumps in the water that she will bang the tongs and the target together, and this is an auditory cue for our turtle. So the turtle has linked the target and to food, meaning that when she comes to the target she will get food, but that auditory cue is also another sign for her that, hey, it's time to feed. Go ahead and come up to the target. Oftentimes when we first get into feed 2, the turtle is asleep and she kind of has her head tucked in the corner of the tank, so that auditory cue is a first sign to, like, a hey, it's time to wake up, almost like an alarm clock. So our turtle can go quite a few hours without taking a breath while she's sleeping or resting. So a lot of times during that first target, she'll come up and she'll take a few breaths before coming to the target for food.
So what you're seeing here is an important part of the training process. It's the option of choice. If the animal doesn't want to come over to see the target, maybe it's not hungry, maybe it's not interested, we let the animal work on its own terms, and it leads for every training session to be different. Variability is really important for these animals, and so giving it the choice of a variety of food items, a variety of locations for feeding, different aquarists being involved in the feeding, have a little bit of different styles, is also important in training our animals and giving them a varied and stimulating life.
So one of her favorite food items that we feed her is fresh salmon. So in these next clips, you'll see Mike. He also cares for the loggerhead sea turtle along with Amy and I. And you can see that he is feeding her big salmon steaks. And so this is farmed salmon, and we get it sent actually from Norway. That's the most sustainable way to get fresh salmon. And yeah, she will target very eagerly for that salmon, so it's actually really fun to feed her that and see that behavior with her. So a couple of reasons why we target train our loggerhead sea turtle and some of our other animals at the aquarium. This is a really positive way to build a relationship with your animals, and it also allows for us to do a couple things with her husbandry. We can, one, ensure her diet, make sure that she's getting all of the food that she needs and all the vitamins that we also place in her food. It also allows for us to do safe vet procedures. So this turtle lives in a 2-story tank, and in order to take her up and out of the water, we have to target her into a basket. So instead of having to put any hands on her or guide her into the basket at all, what we're able to do is just use that target, and she'll follow that target into the basket. We're able to lift her up and out and then put her back in the water. So she associates that target with positive things, and we can use that to our advantage to make it less stressful for her and also less stressful for us. So that was a kind of fun sneak peek of how we do our turtle target training. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and hopefully we can see you guys all real soon. Take care.
Hey Birch Aquarium fans, so I have created some Octopus Enrichment this week, and it's in the number 5. But what this is frozen seawater with 3 clams in it, and then what I also added is a little bit of garlic powder. So it may sound funny, but garlic is often used in the aquarium industry to stimulate hunger in fish. It's just like maybe when you smell garlic, your mouth starts to water. Fish react the same way. So if you don't have a fish, or if you have a fish that's not eating very well, a lot of times you can add garlic to that and it'll help stimulate their hunger. So the octopus has no problem eating, but I thought I'd add it just for funsies, just because it's going to taste different to her. So I'm going to put this in the water and I'm just going to try and get the 5 out real quick. It's going to float because it's ice, which is nice. All right. So you can see we have this nice letter 5 here, and you can see the clams that are all kind of sandwiched in there. So let's see if I can get her attention to come over here and grab this. Whoop, the water is chilly. Hi, okay. So she is over here in the corner. I don't know if you can see her. It's kind of dark over in this side, but she often will hang out up in this corner if you've come to Birch before. This is kind of where one of her favorite little hiding spots. So I think what I'll use is this tickle stick, as I've named it. So I'm just going to get a little bit of that yummy garlic seawater taste on that little tickle stick. So once she starts to put a couple arms on there, all those suction cups, which have more taste buds than your tongue, each one, you're going to go into overdrive. So we'll see if we can get her come over here in the light. Hi, beautiful. This is what I made for you. Happy quarantine. Yum, yum, yum. Can I have the tickle stick though? No, you want the tickle stick? Oh, you can see her working that, the frozen block. I'm just going to get this tickle stick out of the way. So the great thing about frozen enrichment is that it's going to take her a while to work through it. So you'll see she may just go ahead and take that back to her den. But she'll use her beak to kind of scrape away at the ice to find the frozen treats that are in there. So this is a great way to enrich our octopuses because it keeps them busy for a long time. And even when she gets the food out, the food is therefore going to be frozen, so it's going to take her a while to work through that as well. Anyways, thanks for joining us on another little behind-the-scenes episode of our octopus, and hope you guys are doing well.
Hello, my name is Jenny. I am the Senior Life Support Systems Aquarist at the Birch Aquarium at Scripps. And today we are in front of our lovely shark and ray tank. And myself and one of our other aquarists, Eric, are about to feed the sharks and the rays. What's really awesome about all of these guys, they're local animals. So you can see all of these sharks and all of these rays out in our local waters. I feed each shark individually because we want to know exactly who's eating and how much they're eating. And they get vitamins in their food as well. Speaking of the food, today for our lunch we have some capelin. The silverfish here is capelin. We have some squid and we have some mackerel. And this is a little bit of large krill for our croaker in there. They really like, even though this krill is tiny, they love it. We do feed a variety of food. Today we only have some of it. On other days we also feed clam and shrimp. So this is my lovely shark feeding pole right here. I put an individual piece of food on the end here, and then I can plop it in the water and target feed each shark that I want to feed. The first thing I actually feed in the tank is the California halibut. If I don't give the halibut food first, they will steal food from the sharks. So they're kind of the quick ones to eat in here. And then we have Eric over on the side of the tank who is going to be feeding all of our rays. So the rays come up to their feeding station over there. So I'm going to take a piece of capelin here and I am going to feed our larger halibut who is kind of ready and waiting right here. Here he goes. So we can recognize all of the sharks individually. They each have a very different pattern on their skin, so that's how we tell them apart. And hopefully you can see in the video, some of them are a little bit darker, some are lighter, some of their bars are darker. Their markings are very distinct. So that concludes our shark and our ray feed over here at our shark tank. Thanks for tuning in to Birch Aquarium, and have a wonderful day.
Well, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned a ton, because I know that I definitely did. Next week, we're going to take a deep sea dive and explore the ocean floor, as well as learning about ocean mapping, so get excited for that. I'll see you guys next week. Bye!